Myself. How you doing, my friend? Nice to see everybody. And some people know me. I have an interesting experience because I meet a lot of people who know me and I've never met them before.
I'm one of those.
Oh, there you go. So basically, you get the best of Paul Hedderman on YouTube. Usually, you'll be disappointed when you see him. No, it's live is the best way. The best way to hear the message is live, I feel. So again, I'll start it simply. The dilemma was presented by Ramana in a lot of his writings, yeah? He didn't write them, but people who wrote stuff about Ramana Maharshi. You ever hear of him? Mm-hmm. Famous person, whatever, non-person. And a lot of the old Zen masters from China speak about it a lot. Not the Japanese so much, but Chinese. And Ramana Maharshi framed it this way. And he would call this the problem or the greatest mystery of all mysteries. So he gives it some significance. And the statement is there's a presupposing of a non-existent thing that wants to get salvation for the non-existent thing. So it makes absolutely no sense, doesn't it? You know, how are you going to get salvation for the non-existent thing? And do you need salvation from the non-existent thing? It doesn't exist. So basically, your salvation from the non-existent thing is inherent because there's never been an existing non-existing thing. You see? It's so beautiful. So the mental state, whenever time you jack into that, it's in that activity. It's presupposing. So the pre is the important part. I'll give you a good example. When I was young, when I was about 12 years old, I started to feel those hormones and I wanted to, you know, the girls and everything. So there was a mall where I used to live in Long Island called Roosevelt Field. And I was like 12 years old and my hair was growing and I had this outfit that I thought I looked pretty good in. So it was like a red pair of corduroy pants and a long sleeve gray t-shirt. So I take the bus. It was a long, arduous journey. Take the bus, and I'd walk around. I'd look at myself in the windows, and then I see a lot of people were looking at me. So I thought this little strategy was working. So I went on for a couple of months, you know, going every weekend with the same outfit. And then a friend of mine had some compassion for me and said, "Hey, Paul, you know that gray shirt, whatever? It's pink. You know." And he said, "You know those red pants?" Because I was telling him about my red pants. He says, "They're magenta." So as soon as he told me they were pink and magenta, I never saw them as gray and red again. I never had to go into the closet to make sure they weren't gray and red. I just saw them, I saw it like that. It was that clear. For months, I assumed they were gray and red, but they had never been gray or red. They didn't turn into pink and magenta. They were never gray or red. And as soon as the message was given to me, I got it, and I never thought they were gray and red again. That's sort of what it's like. If non-duality becomes a fact to you, it'll become very, very influential. If it becomes a path, it's going to mind-fuck you completely. Because you'll be in the condition of trying to be a non-self as a self, which is torture. Because I get calls from people that are doing that. They'll be talking to me for 20 minutes. Their girlfriend, let's say, left. That's the basic situation. But they go, "Well, she didn't leave anyone. There's no one to leave, and there's no her leaving it." And it goes on, and finally he just breaks down and starts crying. "Oh, she left." I said, "Fucking far out." So you can't use non-duality. The mental state will try to use it. I remember when I first started to hear this message, and I was living in Australia, and my girlfriend would go out, and she'd like me to do some kitchen chores. And when she got back and she saw the dishes weren't done, she says, "Paul, I thought I told you to do the dishes." And I said, "There is no dishes. There are no Paul. There is no Paul." And she said, "Fuck you, do the dishes." So my head tried to make something out of the message of non-duality. But the beautiful aspect of non-duality is that it's actually nothing. It's nothing. It cannot be made into anything. It's like a big desert tortoise and the coyote comes up it and it wants to get some meat, but after 3 minutes of not being able to get to the meat, it gets disinterested and leaves the tortoise, yeah? this is what happens. The mental state will get disinterested in non-duality, and that's the greatest step about non-duality, because it's your own interest that's blinding you. When you lose interest in it, it becomes incredibly obvious. When you have a huge amount of interest, it'll seem to evade you at every turn. So this isn't about concentration. It's not about experience. It's not about states. It's not about epiphanies. It's not about anything. It's about your inherent condition. That's a fact. And what's happening now, seen from there, first of all, seen from the false reference needs a lot of solutions, yeah, because it has a lot of problems. Yeah. But if you see the problem from the solution, there is no problem. It's an activity. The solution is entertaining, basically. Yeah. So when the solution loses interest in entertaining the problem, yeah, in a sense, there is no problem, and then there's no need for a solution. That's a damn good solution. Yeah. You don't even have to have a little pocket of where the solution is. You really have nothing to do with it. That's what's so valuable about it. Yeah. So repetition is helpful. These talks can be helpful because they will not produce an understanding of what you are. They'll produce an understanding of what you're not, so that you can freaking finally see it instead of looking from it all day. You'll see it. Yeah? And when you see it, there'll be an obviousness of interest and attention shifting, because if you see it, it dawns on you it cannot be you. You are not that activity. See? So how does it happen? So this is what I do not like, when people take the approach of describing the indescribable, because what's going to dominate that description is the one who's hearing it. So let's say someone starts chanting for 2 straight days, I'm not a body, I'm not a body, I'm not a body. But all that's doing is reinforcing that you're a freaking body. Because what is not a body does not need the chant, it's not a body. It's very, very clear it's not a body. It's the body trying to get out of the effects of being a body as a body that's freaking chanting it. So what's more important than the message is how it's being heard. Because it overrides it. So when everyone describes the indescribable and starts describing, what blows my mind, I used to do a talk at a spiritual bookstore, and I looked there one day they had tons of new books, like tons of books every freaking month. And one of them was consciousness, 1,200 pages about consciousness while you're conscious. You know, why would you read about consciousness if you're fucking conscious? Why would you want to know what you are when you can be what you are? I want to know what I'm not. That's the key. I do not want to have any descriptions about what I am. I want to have a clear description about what I'm not, so that what I am can recognize that it's not that. See, these talks I learned a long time ago. Like when I do LA, someone came to the person who sets it up and says, you know, Paul, everything he says goes over my head. So he asked me about that, and I said, exactly, that's where we're aiming. We're throwing it over your head, because I definitely know it goes nowhere, me talking to you about Buddha. But if I talk to Buddha about you, it can go fucking far. Yeah? So the point is, you can learn about what you're not. You can study about what you're not. You can experience what it's not like to be what you're not. You can. But you cannot study and know and experience what you are. You're being it. Yeah? And that's the only possibility we have with this, is being it. Yeah? And I found, this is the trick. Like, there's a great old story that they say in Hinduism, whereas there's a lion mother and a cub, and the mother gets killed and the lion cub is abandoned, and it doesn't really know what's going on, so it's walking around the savannah and he sees a herd of sheep, yeah? And so he starts moving towards the sheep. Now the sheep know it's a lion, so they get a little antsy, but the lion doesn't know it's a lion. So it saddles up to the sheep and starts saying, hey, take me in, I'm a humble sheep, whatever. And it tries to become a sheep. And it lives and gets its hair curled and it starts buying and everything. And it has a sheep girlfriend and it becomes an elder in the sheep flock. And it's got a lot of stature as a sheep, but it's feeling a little bit irritable, restless, discontent. Because it's not a freaking sheep. So one day an old lion comes into the area and sees the herd and starts chasing them. And he sees out of the corner of the eye this lion, running. And he thinks it's joining the hunt, but it realizes it's running with the sheep. So he veers off and he grabs the lion. The lion rolls over and says, oh, Mr. Lion, please, I'm a humble sheep. Leave me alone, whatever. And the older lion is very perplexed, just grabs it, drags it over to the water hole, puts both of their heads out, and the young lion sees the reflections. How long does it take for the young lion to realize it's a lion? No time whatsoever. How long would it take for the young lion to realize it's a lion as a sheep? For fucking ever. All it had to do is see it wasn't a sheep. It didn't have to take roaring lessons. Its nature is to roar. Yeah? This is the message. Yeah. Now it's getting distorted. Non-duality is now being wedded with fucking therapy and shit like that. There are no non-duality meetings. Tell me where. Where is a non-duality? And where is a non-duality teacher? There are no non-duality teachers. They're teaching about what we're not, with the hopes that what you are starts seeing that you're not that, and what happens is it will lose interest in it, because if you try to lose interest as what you're not, about what you're not, that's more interest in what you're not. You cannot try to lose interest in self as self, but you can lose interest in self. But if you attempt to lose interest in self as self, you fall under that perplexed situation, self trying to get out of self. Yeah? These are like warnings, like a cigarette pack has a warning. I love every spiritual book to have this fucking statement on the first page. There could be a presupposing a non-existent thing, wanting to get salvation for the non-existent thing by reading this book, or whatever, or by buying this DVD. I mean, the sales would go down like crazy. So would retreats. Retreats are fucking ridiculous in a lot of ways. Yeah, and intensives. This isn't intense enough? Did you see the freaking storm tonight? I have to go into a formalized intensive. I like to see them do a 10-day retreat in Hoboken, New Jersey. That's what I'd like. Not Costa Rica and Hawaii. Go to fucking Newark, New Jersey. Take a 10-day retreat. You'd be lucky to be alive in 3 days. I just don't, it's fine, but it just irritates me because more isn't better with this topic. And in spirituality, like, we're lucky as addicts and alcoholics. There's interventions. The cops will intervene, your family may intervene, but no one at a spiritual meeting goes, hey, you've had enough. Put down the DVD and let's go. You've been at 30 of these freaking retreats. No more freaking retreats. Just like answering questions. If you starve the questioner, they'll realize they're the answer. You keep freaking trying to answer their questions, it turns into freaking therapy sooner or later. And non-duality is not therapy. It's an invitation to entertain a fact. It's like right now we're all in this spiritual shoe store, and you may have an idea of what you need for your spiritual journey, and you try to describe it to me. I'm not going to bring back what you're looking for. I'm going to bring these shoes, and I'm going to say a simple thing. You cannot use the Buddha to seek the Buddha. You cannot use light to seek light. You cannot use big M mind to seek mind. Now, if the shoe fits, you wear it. If it doesn't, do whatever you like. This is not a draft. And it's not in competition with anything else because it's not a path. Yeah, it's a fact. So this is a spiritual shoe store. Now let's say it's Steve, and Steve's having a lot of trouble being Steve, especially with Marys and Jims and Bobs, let's say. And so Steve realizes, man, I like to have some quality of the Buddha, so I'm going to do Buddhism. Makes total sense, yes? From the point of view of Steve. So Steve now starts searching for the Buddha through Buddhism, and it starts getting a loving gaze, and it's feeling a little better, and it has equanimity, as long as it's in a conditioned retreat center, and all this stuff. And it's all fine and dandy, yeah? But see, this master comes, he's not a sadist, he sees Steve, but he knows it's the Buddha. So when he speaks to Steve, aka the Buddha, he says, hey Steve, Buddha, you can't use yourself to look for yourself. Now the Buddha gets it, yeah, bimmo. Now Steve, it will be the depository of that event, and Steve will suddenly stop looking for the Buddha. Yeah. Why? Not because Steve has gotten the Buddha nature, but there's been a recognition you're not Steve, and what happens is, if you're not Steve, you may find out what you are, which is the Buddha. There's no process between realizing you're not Steve and then becoming the Buddha, because you are the Buddha, yeah? So there's a realization you're not Steve, and then, what? Buddha. Like that. What? Yeah. So as soon as the Buddha is not going to be looking for the freaking Buddha. And then now suddenly you're freed from looking for what you can never find, and now you're having a lot of success during the day. I found a good latte today. Yeah, I can find a good latte. I can find a date. I can find chocolate. I can find these things. But I never spent any time looking for what cannot be found. No freaking way. Yeah, I've lost all interest in spiritual journeys. Completely. Now, if as an amusement, it would be great, but as getting to a destination, forget it, because you are what we're looking for. It's so freaking clear, and it cuts out the biggest distortion of all, time. Yeah? It doesn't give you any time between you looking for it and you finding it. It's like you realize what you're not, and you're it. Yeah? No time passes. And when it dawns on you, if it does dawn on you in a frame of time, yeah, it's going to download that it's always been this way. That all that I believe has happened and all that I believe will happen hasn't, nor will it ever. Yeah? It's like, and the erasing of all my story of past and future takes no time, because it never happened. It's so beautiful. And then you start getting a flavor of the solution, which is timeless, a quality that you're not going to find through a fucking path. You're going to feel the timelessness of it. Yeah? That it's sort of like we used to do the thing with knocking on heaven's door. I'm sorry for my friend Amelia. She's heard these thousands of times. Or whatever. It's a good point. So here's knocking on heaven's door, a little story. So I heard where heaven's door is, so I go there. And I have a pretty good spiritual resume. I've been to 4 continents, Tibet, did this, did that. So I go and knock on the door, and the door opens up immediately, which is a little made me feel uncomfortable. There was God like that. I thought the kingdom was huge. It could be far away, but he's right there. And I go, hey, God, can I come in? And God looks right at me and goes, Paul can't come in. So I get disappointed. I go back and I work harder. I really practice, and I'm feeling pretty good about myself. So I go back, knock on the door. And I'm starting to move in, but I want to go through the formality and ask. And I go, hey, God, can I come in? And he goes, Paul can't come in. So now I say, fuck this, and I go out and run around, fornicate and everything. And then my life gets crazy. I fall into a river, almost drown. I come to, and I'm right near the door of, heaven's door, and my mind cracks open. I knock on the door, and immediately the door opens, and I go to God, God, can I come in? And God goes, Paul can't come in, and I walk right in. Because I finally realized I'm not a Paul or a Steve or a Mary. He wasn't directing it personally at me. He was just stating a fact. Paul, Mary, Steve, no non-existent thing is going to enter the kingdom of heaven. Yeah? But I took it personally, and I exiled myself. As soon as I realized I wasn't Paul, I walked right in. Yes, this is what it's like. Get a flavor of it, because it's different than the flavor we're used to. Timelessness rushes up on you. It doesn't herald its coming, yeah? And you can't prepare for it. You can't get ready for it because you're already there, yeah? And the mental processes that are producing the sense of self, they say they take about 5/100th of a second to produce the sense of you, yeah? And that sense of you is going to claim whatever you come in contact with, that sense of you. So every process is never gonna outgun that process. You're never gonna meditate yourself before the meditator, yeah? It's gonna outgun us, but one thing can outgun it, which is timelessness. Because timelessness, the gun is always out. It never wastes any time to draw. Yeah? That's our solution. Our solution is before the problem. It's our inherent condition. And it'll let you have joy where joy's to be found. You'll love your freaking hike and stuff because you'll be there. Yeah? You'll be in the moment because you'll realize you've never been out of a moment. Not that you've learned methods to get into it. You'll realize you can't be out of it, which is totally disarming. And you won't spend too much time trying to get out of what you can't be in, which is self. You're not a thing. Have you ever seen, I had an Uncle Fred when I was younger. I really liked him. I see him at the relatives' parties. He'd give me $1 behind his back so my mother wouldn't see. So he bought my love, very successful. I'm easily to be bought. And then he passed away. I was 9 years old, and my mother took me to the funeral. And she brought me up to the casket. I looked in, and I had a direct hit. That ain't Uncle Fred. Yeah? The body, the non-existent thing was there, but without the animating principle, it was obvious it wasn't Uncle Fred. And then in hindsight, I could see, why would I think the body was Uncle Fred all that time? Because I was thinking the animating principle was this body called Paul, yeah? But when I saw the body, which is totally intact, but without the spirit, so to speak, in it, it was so clear that wasn't Uncle Fred. I had mistaken Uncle Fred with the body, just like I've been mistaking myself with the body. Yeah. So, this is an invitation. If the shoe fits, wear it. If you have a sense of the statement, what's looking is what you're looking for, famous statement from St. Francis. If you really look at that statement, it's quite beautiful because it goes, what's looking, and then there isn't like 50 pages of requirements for you to fulfill to become the you that you're looking for. It just says what's looking is what you're looking for, like right now. Yeah? And if that's the case, what would happen to all the looking for? It would be much more clearly directed at fucking things you could find. So, you know, the paths are mostly for the brain and the body. They're not for spirit. You know, the spirit doesn't need a path. The spirit doesn't need to become more spirit. It's just that simple. But we're fucking crazy as action figures. Yeah? We need work. I mean, meditation's great for blood pressure and stuff. And to calm down. I love it all. But the idea that we're going to arrive at where we already are is insane to me. Yeah? Truly. Yeah. You want to go? We're going to have questions now? All right.
Like in the lion metaphor, it was obvious immediately, and my sense has been that I'm being gradually erased and wondering about that and asking about that.
Yeah.
And just kind of standing in awe of it, not being afraid of it. So it seems more gradual than instantaneous. But
well, for that, the starting point was the instantaneous, and then in this movie is of time and space. It can look like it takes time to happen, but what is happening is already happened. It's never not happened, yeah? But it will seem like it's getting deeper and growing, of course, because we're playing out it into a movie sequence, you know, just like a movie. Usually there's a someone goes through a hell and has a resurrection and stuff like that. Yeah, so we're playing it out. It's like the Course in Miracles. Do you ever hear of that?
Mm-hmm.
The Course in Miracles has a beautiful lines, a couple of them. It says, "You and I are the dreaming of the dream." Yeah, I don't believe there's a dream, because that would be a thing. I would say you and I are the dreaming of the dreaming. Yeah, and we forget that we're dreaming, which can only be seemingly. See, seemingly is an important word here. It means it appears to be true or false to us. Yeah, so everything here is seemingly so. Yeah. I mean, I can see something one day, it's the worst thing that ever happened, and then something changes, I see it the best thing that ever happened. Obviously. Did it go through a transmutation from the worst to the best? No. I gave it all the meaning it has, like lesson 2 in the Course. That's what this action figure does. It gives meanings to things all day. Yeah? The important thing is what's directing the meaning giving, not the meaning giving, really. So, all right, so it says, you and I, dreaming the dreaming, we forget that we're dreaming. And suddenly, in that condition, everything we're dreaming now has the ability to affect us as the dreamt. Yes? That, to me, is exactly what's happening every day. Yeah? The dreaming has become seemingly identified as the dreamt, and now all that it's dreaming has the power to affect the dreamt. So you're dreaming thoughts, and now the thoughts can own you. Yeah? How do they own you? Usually preceded by the sense of my thought, my problem, my body, my this, my that. That's the act of the bondage of self, completely. You can see it. You can see the activity all day. Whatever comes after the my is changed completely by the mind. It's like money. I wish all of you have a lot of money, but I don't want you to have any of my money. Yeah? So I changed the meaning of money without changing the word at all, just by putting the my. That's not a random, that's happening all day. See, if you see it, you won't be looking from it. If you're looking from it and try to see it, it's going to go nowhere. If you just see, if you see the false reference, yeah, that's money, that works, yeah, that works. You'll be what you're looking for. And suddenly, that hope and aspiration, and usually it's sometimes just another way of the mental state trying to deny its troubles, will be a fact to you. Yeah? It'll be done. You have the ability to be convinced. You are now convinced, and then that becomes a new platform, and your life looks a lot different growing from there than it did from here. Totally. Yeah, yeah. It's cool. Can come here. I don't know anybody here. Person who picked me up I didn't know. Don't know Colette. We just show up. And then here we are at a chocolate factory. Freaking awesome. Yeah? Yeah. This happens all the time. If I thought about it, I'd never come. Who the hell would come? You know? But you don't think anymore. You're just directed. You're directed. And you're not, and you have the ability, you'll know the tree by its fruits, like Jesus says. You can't know the tree, because you are the tree. But you'll know the tree by its fruits. You'll see something manifesting in your life and in other people's lives, and it will be like a signature of like an unseen hand and everything. And you'll start, you want to call it, as the Sufis call it, the beloved or whatever. You'll get a sense of the magic here. Yeah. And then, to me, the head, the narrative in my life used to be like CNN, and now it's like Comedy Central. Its whole intent has been changed. Yeah, I have like 13 skits at one time about you, about everyone I meet, just going off. Before, that was ponderously taken to be true. It's like fucking news flashes all day. Now it's all comedy. You don't have to change anything. It's how, you know, the meaning of it will change. Like in the Course, they call it the Holy Spirit, yeah? In AA, we call it the higher power. They're only aspects of what we are. But if you see what the Holy Spirit and higher power, the role they play is, the Holy Spirit will take the same data that's being taken by our brain and everything, yet it will collate it differently than the mental state will. So the mental state will reinforce the separation and the win and lose and this and that. The Holy Spirit will use the other stuff to relieve you or to dream yourself out of the dream. It's beautiful. It's the same information, but put to a different task. Yeah? It's beautiful. And so the Course has a beautiful, beautiful statement. It says, you and I are we're dreaming this dream, and we're going to dream ourselves out of the dream. And as we do, the dream will get happier. It's a beautiful, beautiful, soothing statement, yeah? So no one's ever going to miss the bus. The bus waits for every one of us. And then if you believe you've been missing the point and longing, when it dawns on you, time is gone. There was no longing. There was never been a moment where you missed anything, yeah? So we're dreaming ourselves out of the dreaming. So right now, hopefully this event, some of us are using this event to dream ourselves out of the dreaming. That's what satsang is in a sense, yeah? You get together as dreaming, and we dream ourselves out of the dreaming, and the dream gets happier. And what a great demonstration of happiness than fucking great chocolate. Yeah? I mean, look at the miracle. It's beautiful. Look at the demonstration. But the head, you see, the head has a resentment about something that never fucking happened. Going over it for 30 years. A miracle occurs, it forgets it in an hour. You gotta see the balance is off, yeah? What you're listening to is way, 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 way biased. Like if something's going good, it starts getting suspicious in 5 minutes, like a relationship or anything. If you feel a little tinge of uncomfortability, it's the starting of a lifelong depression. Do you really want that to be the theme setter of the narration every day? Do you want to be wedded to it? And the only reason why you're listening to it is it implies that it's about you. You wouldn't listen to the narration of life from Stanley's point of view if you're not a Stanley. You wouldn't. You'd turn it off in 5 minutes. Unless you went out with a Stanley, then you may want to listen to be right about the situation. You see it. If you don't see it, this isn't passive. Awakeness has no passivity in it. Awakeness is fucking dynamic. Like Ramana says, you see these people not doing anything. They're doing so fucking much. The mind is moving in the speed of light. Yeah? Yeah, so. Any questions? You get the flavor of it? Yes, you see? If you set out to look for what you are from what you're not, it's going to be a long, drawn-out affair. If you use the same attention and direct it to what you're not, and you see what you're not, you'll have a possibility or a sense of being what you are now. Yeah? The direction is different. But that one step, if the false reference gets reaffirmed by looking for what it calls itself, it's never gonna fucking end. Yeah? It gets a sense of what it is for looking for its mythical idea of you. No, turn around and see if it's true or not. If it isn't so, you may be what you're looking for right now. And if you are, some peace and understanding and serenity will download. Yeah? Now, not in future, now, yes? You'll have a satisfaction and contentment, and then when you have that, you realize enlightenment and awakening, those words have done more damage than any good. I mean, most people who are in spiritual circles, I wish they never heard the word awakening, because they've been judging themselves by it forever, and then enlightenment's the worst. Especially if you think someone else is enlightened and you're not, and they've gone to less meetings than you. It's fucking terrible, man. Yeah? And enlightenment means cessation of all suffering, but when the mental state claims it, what does it do? It uses it to cause suffering. That's exactly what happens. Yes? Something that's beautiful, if claimed by the mental state, will be used for other purposes. You're yearning for, let's say, peace or freedom, gets misdirected, and now you try to be free as a self instead of realizing the freedom is from self. Yeah? And that's what, that shoe fit me. When I heard these statements when I was coming around, they stunned the hell out of me. I had a lot of rude awakenings, and one of them was that. In AA, there's a statement, you don't mind if I go for 5 more minutes? All right. There's a statement, and a very important chapter in our text, which is about the inventory, taking an inventory of one's life. where you look at resentments and fears and how you acted out in the pursuit of what you wanted, yeah? So that you can see what kind of amends you need to make, and then basically to see how self has defeated you, yeah? So it says a statement, it says, being convinced, which is the state you're in non-duality. In non-duality, you are being convinced about what you're not. It's not like you were convinced or you're gonna be convinced. There's a being convinced right now that self, this sense of being a long-lasting, independent, separate entity, this product of a mental process, whatever you want to call it, a parasite, a foreign installment, a failed GPS, just trying to picture it as something other than you, because if the problem is the act of being identified, you have to see what you're identifying as other. You have to picture it as something other than you, or you'll be trying to be free as it, yeah? All right, so there it is. So it says, being convinced that self, manifested in various ways, yeah, has defeated us. So it's saying basically here, we're the us, and then there's this thing, or this mental process, or whatever, a demon, whatever, self, yeah, has defeated all of us. And it's done it by manifesting in various ways, yeah. If we're convinced of that, we will now look at its common manifestations. And then the next paragraph, this is a huge part of the recovery program. The next paragraph starts with the word resentment. So resentment is the #1 offender. It kills more alcoholics than anything else, yeah? Yet when people look at their resentments in their life, they call them their resentments, yeah? But they're really expressions of self. So how can an expression of self suddenly become yours unless there's an identification as self? Yeah? How could Stanley's expressions become mine unless I became identified as Stanley? So then what Stanley's expressions I would call mine, yes? Now, what would I need to do to get out of Stanley's resentments? Because it'll be much easier to get out of Stanley's resentments than my resentments, because the difference is huge. My resentments they start off tons of stories in my life. I've made 800 fucking calls about my resentments to other people and talk about their resentments. You know, so if you see the resentment as not yours, there's a possibility you can be free from it. Yes, yes. So it's an act of being identified as a self. We're missing it because we're looking for it as a thing when it's a verb. It's verbing. Verbing, and you're participating in it. Nothing could fool reality but reality. There is no illusion that could fool reality. None, unless reality was entertaining it. Yeah? Like we say in AA, false evidence appears real. It has to appear real to something that's real. If false evidence is going to appear real, it has to appear real to what's real. That's the only thing that could give it a meaning of reality, is reality, yeah? We're reality. We are the activity of reality right now. So you're never going to see it from a noun. You're never going to see it. I don't care how many glasses of water you get from the Colorado River, and you have it, so many of them on your mantle, and everyone who comes over, you say, look I got the Colorado River, but you missed the most important essence of the Colorado River, the rivering. You got just a glass of water, but you missed the whole rivering of it. That's it. It's being. That's it, eh? I could go on and on, but it doesn't. I have too much faith in you. You already are what you're looking for. There's no need to be convincing of all. Just entertain it as a possibility. If it bears fruit, you'll be the bearer of that fruit, and hopefully you'll share it with others. Yeah. If not, then you're going to dream yourself out of the place anyway. If you want to make it harder on yourself, then do it. Yes?
Yeah, so is that imagination? What role does imagination play in this? Is that more of the mind, or is that...
The imagination is a beautiful quality. If directed by the right aspect of mind. If the mental state imagines, it usually imagines you with cancer, and fucking tons of other shit in the realm of what's not happening. The imagination has been put to work by the mental processes to enslave you, really. It's producing so much anxiety about what's not happening. Most people's life, every day, they're not responding to what's happening. They're reacting to what's not happening in their head. And that's where the imagination has been used or misused, where you're imagining terrible fucking things that are never going to happen. I'm going to have cancer, I'm destitute, all this stuff, but you're not right now. Yeah? See, what's happening has one quality, is that it's happening. What's not happening, anything can happen in what's not happening, but it misses that one quality what's happening has, which is it's not happening. And this one quality can override all of what's not happening. Just the simple dog shit awareness of what's happening will override and produce an immunity to what's not happening. But I'm telling you humbly, the act of being identified as this is the Petri dish. This is the original what's not happening. And for it to keep seeming happening, you dwell in what's not happening. Because in what's not happening, you're always pictured. And you're pictured as a body. Yes? The what's not happening right now is entertaining what's not happening to make it seem like it's fucking happening. Watch it, see it. It's a slavery. You can see it. You have the eyes to see. And then non-duality will be a fact. There won't be any discussion or anything. You'll know not to, like the great famous Zen master in his greatest exposition, of faith mind, just yells out at the end, not to. That's what he says. Not to, exactly. He doesn't say one. That's all that, see, that's misdirection. To talk about one to the two is pointless. Yeah? Just see you're not two and find out everything else. Yeah. And if you don't agree with this direction, there's people giving non-duality talks that are giving you a path, basically. They are. So take it. See where it takes you. I've got a feeling you're going to be twisted up as as a self trying to be a non-self. It's painful to watch, it really is. And they're so civilized they won't fucking act out, but there'll be an 800 satsang waiting to get it. You know what I mean? And they want to be there to experience their own absence. And it's never going to budge. Because non-duality doesn't budge for any of us. It's just a fact. Yeah? Yeah. So there you go. Let's have some chocolate, yeah? I'm ready to spend. Oh, are we going to pass the basket?
Yeah.
Do we have any money we're going to give Paul Hedderman? Sure. Thank you. I need some.
Can we give it to Amanda instead of you?